for many years. We were at University of British Columbia together when I was a postdoc and he was doing his PhD, and I have been following him since on LinkedIn and YouTube, and I saw he had some very relevant talks to what we do at C2SHiP. So when I met him in Vancouver a few days ago, I asked him to give us a talk, but in his role as a director of solutions medtech for a city connected. Oh, sorry, I'm reading a previous one, but Pedram has his own startup that is related to AI in healthcare, and he has been an AI architect and innovator who has built several industry-grade AI products across diverse sectors. He holds a Ph.D. in electrical and computer engineering from UBC and is an innovator of AI technologies with 5 US patents, later acquired by Meta. As the author of Artificial Intelligence, Unorthodox Lessons, Pedram shares his insights on AI strategy and development. He is on a mission to empower enterprise and communities to effectively adapt AI. So again, one thing I realized, and one of the reasons I thought I wanted him to be with us, is that he really puts it in a language that I think is usable by most people. And I thought it would be great to have him here. Thank you for being here, Pedram, and please share your screen and take it away.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for your kind introduction. So let me share my screen and can go from there. So no, not yet. So you see my screen, right?
We do.
Awesome. Perfect. Again, thanks everyone to be here. Thanks Kuyar and Bijan to invite me to this discussion. I'm very happy and excited to be here and presenting some of my works and my excitation about AI use case in healthcare. So today's talk is one of the experience of mine and one of the projects that I'm pursuing about the AI use case, and specifically generative AI use case in healthcare, providing the personalized care for individuals. And this is mostly comes from a combination of my professional experience and personal experience, and that's why I'm very excited about. A little introduction about myself. I'm not gonna spend a lot on it. I took my PhD from UBC, as Kuyar mentioned. I built a very interesting wearable product years ago with a very talented group of people, group of engineers. It was a wearable that we call it Mayo armband, a gesture recognition control armband. The patents that I have was based on the AI engine that I designed for this product, and those AI engine patents purchased and acquired by Meta to be used in the Oculus project, and which was very exciting to see that what you built being acquired by a big corporation and being used in a very futuristic technology. I wrote a book called Artificial Intelligence Unorthodox Lessons to share my experience, my industrial experience with a very simple words, as Kuyar mentioned, with the community, and also I run a YouTube channel with the same name. Both of them are in the mission of sharing my industry experience in a simple words that can be used by everyone, and mostly focus on useful stuff, no fluff, something that people can use and can be used in everyday basis. So the outline of this talk is as this. I'm going to explain a little bit about AI fundamentals. I'm not going to go very deep into it. And then I'm going to talk about the best practice in prompt engineering skills, which is a very important skills these days, especially for the generative AI, because if you don't use best practice of prompt engineering, you cannot gain value from generative AI as much as possible. And based on those skills, I'm gonna build step by step a very well-crafted prompt for the sake of medical risk analysis, which is the foundation of the project that I'm working on. The project that I'm working on is not only based on this, because it needs to be basically integrated with much more, but this prompt, this well-crafted prompt that can do risk analysis, is a foundation of the project that I'm pursuing. And I'm going to show two demos, one using Grok and one using N8N. I'm going to show you how this prompt can be used within these two technologies. So this is my understanding of AI, a technology that helps you enhance the quality of decision that you want to make and escalate the number of decisions that you want to make. Everyone's have their own understanding of AI, but in my experience in the last 10 or 15 years, if you think of AI as this, you can take value, you can gain value much better from AI. Quality of decision and number of decisions. Generative AI versus traditional AI there's two different words. There are a lot of similarity, but as you know, the Gen AI being introduced in last 2 years shows a lot of breakthrough applications. But mostly generative AI is about these use cases: answering your question, creating content, generating code, which is amazing. I mean, the experience that you can get from code generation, it's mind-blowing. In comparison to the traditional AI, which is mostly on for example, the fraud detection or demand forecasting or churn prediction, these are the very standard use case of traditional AI versus the use case of generative AI. You cannot use Gen AI, for example, for demand forecasting as well as the traditional AI, and vice versa. So you have to understand what is the best use case for each of these technology in order to take advantage of them well, and with a high accuracy and high basically precision. So it's important to know which use case fit to what technology. Obviously, the example of the Gen AI technologies out there is a technology like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and many other language models out there. And the example of the traditional AI that we deal with years back, it was like spam filtering on your email inbox or the Netflix recommendation systems that we had before. Let's take one step back and think, what is the primary function of AI in general? We understand what is AI, but it's better to understand what is the main primary function of AI. So I categorize the primary function into 4 categories: perception, prediction, identification, optimization. Perception means mostly interpret and analyze complex data, which Gen AI is very powerful in this use case. There was a lot of work on the perception with the traditional AI, mostly with NLP, natural language processing. But all of those attempts was useful, but not that useful. For example, the power of summarization that we could get from NLP, the traditional AI, was not great. Or the power of the sentiment analysis that we could get from the traditional AI was not great. This perception function basically being unlocked by Gen AI, which is amazing. Prediction, which means that forecasting the future events, such as weather condition or customer behavior, is something that traditional AI is very good at, because mostly it works based on the past and historical data that every enterprise have about their own customers or their own basically database. Identification means that recognizing patterns, like any malfunctioning or malbehavior in your data set that translate to the fraud detection or translate to the predictive maintenance, which is definitely is not the focus of our today discussion. And optimization, which means mostly on the enhancing performance and productivity. For example, generating personalized ad or generating personalized recommendation. Everything related to the improving productivity and performance also went into this category, which Gen AI is also very, very powerful in these use cases. This is a very brief spectrum of development within Gen AI world. So 2 years ago, large language models were introduced. They introduced many different best practices of using Gen AI and using LLMs, such as guardrailing, self-consistency, chain of thoughts, which I'm going to explain today on this basically best practices. A little bit after, they introduced something that we call in-context learning, which means that LLMs were basically trained based on the whole internet data. They did not have access to data that you have in your machine or in your database, which was covered and which was hidden to the LLMs. So in order to use that data, a new technology introduced named in-context learning, or RAG, which stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation, mostly to enable you use your own data with LLMs, which LLMs did not have access to that data beforehand. That technology also unlocked a lot of good use cases, like searching within your own documents and everything. But then another door unlocked by technology of the Gen AI, which was mostly on the search on the web. Every large language model basically trained based on the latest data that they have access to, 2024 January 1st, for example. But if they cannot search internet, they will be limited to the data that they have in their own training data sets. So by introducing the capability of searching the web, basically the LLMs can now have access to the very, very latest data on the web. The LLMs, introduction of the LLMs, introduction of the in-context learning, and introduction of the search to the latest data on the web offered and introduced a large number of use cases for generative AI. But then a new sort of terms, a new sort of concept introduced after that, which mostly called agentic. I'm sure that all of you heard about agency, AI agent, agentic AI. They have very similar concepts and definitions, a little bit, not exactly identical, but basically all of them is based on the idea of building an agent, building an entity that contain an LLM and also have access to the tools and to the database that you want to add to the systems. For example, you have a data from your patient that LLMs did not have access. How you want to add this data to your model. So the idea of the agentic AI involves the points of adding data and tools to your basically models. There are many different technology introduced for this specific domain. One of them is N8N, which I'm going to also show you a very glimpse of the project that I developed in N8N, which is some sort of a no-code environment to build AI agent. Today, just before this discussion, I found that Google also introduced something called Opal, which is very similar to the N8N and probably with a different interface, which helps you to build mini app using generative AI, which I'm sure is it's going to be very useful when you will be able to build mini app through a no-code interface. It's going to be amazing. So this is a very high-level spectrum of development in Gen AI. Today, our discussion mostly would be focused on the first parts, the LLMs, and how we can how we can take advantage of the LLMs to the most. Primary use case of AI, as you know, AI is everywhere, from research, education, finance, marketing, healthcare. And for the healthcare, personalized medicine is the use case that I'm very interested in, and we are gonna deep dive into the very interesting use case of the personalized medicine today. But as you see on the screen, for example, for the research, if you are in the research, there are amazing use case of the AI also in the research, from literature survey to peer reviewing articles to gap analysis. You just need to do right prompting. So the best practice of prompting that I would try to show today would enable all of us to apply to different use cases, from personalized medicine to literature survey, to gap analysis, to topic exploration, and every other idea that you have in your mind. So the fundamental of the prompt engineering, which I'm gonna go through, will help us to build a lot of mini apps. As long as you understand these prompt engineering skills and combine that with the technologies like N8N and Grok or Opal, you can build a lot of different useful mini app. And when I would like to insist on useful, because it matters a lot to find the right use case for your own work and build solution for that. You cannot you can explore many different use cases in AI, but as long as you do not find right use case, you cannot be benefited from AI as much as possible. Personalized medicine, as you know better than me, have a lot of different I would say definition, or I would say applications. The one that I want to go through today is running a comprehensive analysis of treatment plan. The solution that I'm going to explain today is a risk analysis of a treatment plan, which for me, it is very important, especially for the people with the complex health situation, those individuals who take a lot of different medicine, people like elderly people who are very sensitive. So when it comes to the complex health situation, it is very important to always have a second opinion. And for me, as a person who working in the AI and the healthcare, second opinion to me is AI. So why not to use AI as a second opinion for any treatment plan that I or any other people being prescribed. And doesn't matter, this treatment plan includes paraclinical evaluation or medication. everything on the treatment plan can be analyzed, and that's the very beauty of it. So I hope you got a very brief understanding of the definition of AI, the use case of AI, the primary function of AI. Now I want to jump in on the high-level prompt engineering skills. Prompt engineering is if I want to like it, transcribe it in a simple words, it means that the way that you want to interface with ChatGPT, the way that you want to interface with AI, with the generative AI. That's it. The way that you want to write your input. I'm sure that everyone's now are already start communicating with Gen AI technologies. But if we know how we should do that effectively, you will get better answer. And again, I would like to emphasize better answers in every different application, not specifically on risk analysis use case. So the fundamentals that I'm gonna go through today would be applicable to every other use cases. What are the very high level best practices of prompt engineering? Being clear and concise and avoid jargon is always recommended. Asking AI to answer you to a specific style. For example, explain this topic to me like a explain this to me like a topic on a children's education network. Asking AI to explain a topic with a specific style, a specific format, a specific audience would empower you to gain more value from this technology, because you as an expert, when you want to communicate with ChatGPT, expect more technical terms, expect more medical terms. But right now, the interface that we have with all of these technologies is one for all. So it is important to ask this technology to get back to you with the style that you need, with the format that you need. For example, list bullet points, the structure of the format. It is very important for the LLMs and for this Gen AI to be restricted. When you ask them to get back to you, for example, with 300 words, usually you get much better answer, and the AI, the LLMs would prevent from generating a large body of text which are not very useful. So when you restrict it, you enforce the AI to get back to you with the best answers possible. And of course, providing context, a very detailed context, always and always help for AI to get back to you with the best answer. For example, if you want to do risk analysis for a specific individual, it is important for AI to have access to everything related to that individual, to all medication that they take, to all treatment that they will take, to the patient's profile. Everything related to that individual's would count as a context. These are the very high-level practice or high-level principle. But let me go through some other practice, which is very important when you want to communicate with Gen AI. There's one practice, they call it few-shot prompting or few-shot learning, which means that when you want to ask question from AI, provide one or two, that's called few, one or two acceptable response to enforce AI, to ask AI to be consistent with that format, with that example. In this very example, it's a sentiment classifier example. User asked AI that for each message, give the percentage of positive / neutral / negative sentiment for the message. And here are some samples, like that input is I liked it, that output is 70% positive, 30% neutral, 0% negative, for example. So in this case, user defined acceptable output for the AI. The user provide here 3 examples, and then ask his own question. In this case, AI will get back to you with the very same structure that you provide to him. There's another practice they call role-based prompting, which is also very crucial. Every time that you want to ask a question, it's better to ask him to answer this question. Assume that, for example, he is a cardiologist, he is a general physician, he is a artist. Define the role of AI beforehand, before asking question. In this case, it's a very generic use case. The user asks AI that you are a virtual tour guide, currently walking the like a tourist of Eiffel Tower on a night tour. So by this first sentence, you define role for AI, and every answer that you get from the AI is based on this role definition. In our use case, which I'm going to show, basically the role that we are going to define is a cardiologist, is a general physician, is a medical assistant, and anything like that. The answer that you get out of this would rely and would be sensitive to the role that you define for AI. The next practice is what we call it as a chain of thought, which is also very important, especially for the complex use case, such as risk analysis, that you ask AI to answer you step by step. First, in this use case, which I'm not gonna go through, which is like a tourism use case, you define steps for your answers. You help AI to first think and then respond. Because if you ask questions out of hand, AI can go very creative, but you usually want answer in a very specific format, in a specific line of thought. It is important for an expert or for a professional who works with AI to use this chain of thought practice in order to get answer in a way that they expect, in a way that they basically think. Self-consistency is another practice which is crucial for the AI. What does self-consistency mean is AI, doesn't matter Gen AI or traditional AI, is a machine which is probabilistic. So when it comes to the complex questions, AI may get back to you with different answer every time that you ask question. I do not want to say that like it's random, but it's probabilistic. So you ask question from AI today with the specific terms, you get, for example, answer number 1. Question with this very same prompt. Due to the probabilistic behavior behind this AI engine, it may get back to you with a different answer. This is dangerous when it comes to the complex use cases and critical use cases. Plus, you may change your prompt and you may change your input when you ask same question. And AI is sensitive to the prompt that you give to him. So when the input gets changed, the output might also get changed. So due to these two specific intrinsic behavior of LLMs, which is probabilistic behavior and being prompt sensitive, you should run your answer several times and add some guard railing on top of this practice. That's what self-consistency means. You want to enforce AI to be consistent with the practice that you know. So if you don't do that in a complex use case, you may regret, basically, because you cannot tolerate different answers every time that you ask, especially in the healthcare use cases. So building architecture that can handle prompt sensitivity and can handle the probabilistic behavior of this AI is very important. So we learn about few-shot prompting for the structuring the output. We learned about the self-consistency idea. We learned about role-based prompting. There are much more practices for AI for prompting, which I'm going to cover them for this specific use case that we want to go through today for the medical risk assessment. Kriyash, all the question answer is all at the very end, right?
There are also questions in the chat if you want to take, but you can also wait.
I cannot see the question. Let me see.
So maybe we can keep it at the end to keep it a good discussion. So let's finish the talk and can go to the comments.
Sure, awesome. So now I'm gonna, I would build a prompt for medical risk analysis based on the best practices of prompting. So let's say we want to build a risk analysis, and the question that we have is, what are the top 3 risks, including direct and indirect, for the situation explained in the context? And the context is usually, for example, a person, a 75-year-old, for example, female, take atorvastatin and wants to go under a severe physiotherapy session. It can be as simple as this, and it can be much, much more complex. But everything related to the individual, to the patients, would go under this context, and you ask questions of AI regarding that context. So this is a basic prompt, and the idea that I show that here is just for setting the baseline. You can run this basic prompt on the Grok or on any other LLMs and see the response, and compare that with the very final prompt that we are going to show. So this is a minimal prompt, open-ended. It lacks direction, but it's a very great starting point for sure. I mean, you will be, I get amazed like 2 years ago when I started using this. The next step is defining role, as I explained in the previous slide. So now I define a role of you are a medical assistant evaluating and analyzing treatment risks. We can replace medical assistant with a cardiologist. We can replace it with any other, like a general surgeon. And the answer that you would get out of this prompt would change. Basically, AI would put himself in the shoes of that person and answer the questions with that angle. So assigning a professional role improves tone, accuracy, and most importantly, it aligns the answer with the domain expectation, which is very important when you want to use AI in your own professional work. The next step is what we call as define clear task. The task that I explained, the basic prompt, is very basic. Like, what are the top 3 risks? But now I want to add more quantification. I want to add more. I want to make sure that AI analyze situation other than only answer the situation, answer the question. So analyzing situation and answering your question is 2 different things. Answering question is great, but what you need is analyzing. So I add these lines after the task that ensure that you include the following criteria in your response. The confidence of your answer. When a probabilistic engine answer your question, it always have some sort of confidence level. This is this confidence is a similar concepts in the traditional AI as well. It's not something new specific for Gen AI. Confidence always comes with the probabilistic engine, but it is important to ask AI itself to get back to you with a confidence level. Then I ask him to tell me the likelihood of occurrence of that risk. So when you ask a question about risk, you need the confidence of machine on that answer. You need likelihood of occurrence for that risk. You need risk level of, like, the level of that risk. Is it critical? Is it high? Is it medium? You need category of that risk. I'm going to explain why I ask category in later on, because usually when you ask a question, your journey is not finished there. You want to take action after that. So answering questions is great, but it just you need to take action after that. So this is important for that reason. The last one, which is also very, very, very important, is reasoning or justification. When you ask AI for any question, you better to ask the reasoning behind that, because in order to build trust from your AI, you want to make sure that you understand the reason and you as expert verify and validate that reasoning, because in that case the trust between you and AI will be improved. So by enhancing this task and adding these quantification metrics and reasoning and confidence, you perform an analysis rather than only a simple question and answering experience. Self-consistency is what I explained before, but now I'm going to show how we enforce it. So in the task, I asked the machine to answer this question 3 times independently. So machine answer one question 3 times, and then we add some guardrail to make decision on the pool of answer that it get generated. So I'm trying to build consistency. I'm trying to enforce consistency for the solution. So the repetition promotes internal validation and making sure about this consistency that we need. The next step is a guardrailing. So when I have 3 different set of answer, now I can enforce a guardrail to choose an answer which I can trust in. Let me read the guardrailing step. After completing all 3 assessments, which I explained in the task, group and normalize similar tasks based on medical understanding, identify normalized risk that appear in all 3 assessments. With this term, I enforce the machine to not, I kind of prevent this experience to have a random answer. Because if an answer happens in 3 different and independent run, there's a high likelihood that that answer is correct. So basically you reduce you mitigate the probabilistic behavior of machine. I also ask machine to get back to me if the confidence is high. So in that case, if the machine come with an answer which is he himself has not trust in, so it does not get back to me with that answer. And also some other criteria. So by adding these guardrails and criteria, I try to synthesize meaningful results with a consistent behavior. This is what we call it as a post-processing logic. So these are the very similar concepts from the traditional AI world. Those of you who are you know, who knows the traditional AI will confirm me that the idea of the post-processing was very valid in that world. In this world of Gen AI, we call it guardrailing, for example. Step 6, which is a structured output, is something that we as a professional need for our own use cases. When you ask a question from machine, from AI get back to you with any structure that he come up with. It's not bad, it's correct, but it may not fit to your need. And that's a problem. So you usually, when it comes to different scenario, different situations, you need a specific set of questions being answered. You do not want to let AI decide about the questions or decide about the sub-questions that is required here. You want to specific set of questions. You want a specific set of structure for your report, that you are comfortable with, a report that you expect, a report that you want to submit to anywhere, like to your patient, to the organization, or to your colleagues, or for any use case that you have. So a structured output is also very important when you want to transform your experience from question answering to something more useful. In this case, I structured the output as follows: title, patient profile, result with this table format, explanation for physician, explanation for patient, because the reports that I'm going to generate and I'm going to show would be useful for patient. A patient wants to understand the situation by simple terms, but that simple terms may not help doctors or colleagues or other professionals. So you also want to explain the situation to the professional as well. I also add recommendation steps, suggestion, and vice versa. So clear formatting improves readability, facilitate human consumption. I do believe in this human consumption because we are living in the world that like a very high-paced world. So we want to consume content very fast. So structured output helps us a lot in that regard. Sometimes you also want to, as I said, to be consistent and comply with some guidelines. So you need to get some specific output out of this. Step 7 is target audience, as I explained a little bit. So for professionals and physicians, I explained what did I mean by that. So not only it is important for you to define role for the AI to answer, you also want to make sure that you define target audience for your answer. So this steps helps you to define, to make sure that all the stakeholders understand and properly, and also get message properly out of this report. Enhance communication. The last step is adding HTML output or console log. This is just for presenting. So I'm going to show the HTML output that I generate out of this, because when it comes to the ChatGPT console, it may not be very readable. You want something beautiful. You want something readable. So it always helps to get HTML output something very beautiful, and also get some log from all the chain of thought that the machine went through. So by adding these guidelines step, you improve end user experience and add professionalism to your work. So before I show you the final prompt and show you in the demo, this is the principles that we went through. Adding context, defining role, clarifying task, running independent answer, adding guardrail, adding a structured output, define audience, target audience, and add some visual and console output. Let me go through the demo that I have. So this is the final response that I get from this prompt that I'm going to show. Patient profile. The profile, basically the context. The patient is a 75-year-old female currently taking atorvastatin and recently prescribed severe physiotherapy session. So AI identified this risk: a statin-induced muscle damage, myopathy, or rhabdomyolysis. The confidence on this, based on the 3 attempts that they run, is this one. The likelihood of occurrence is 7.6 out of 10. Risk level is high. Risk category is a drug treatment interaction. You can go with it. I mean, machine can understand the drug interaction, drug treatment, and anything else. Key symptoms. This is explanation. As I said, for physician, for professional, for patient. So for the patient is a very simple, it comes in a very simple terms. The medicine you are taking can sometimes make your muscles sore or weak. Doing intense exercise like the physiotherapy you've been prescribed might make this worse and could hurt your muscles, blah, blah, blah. The result that you get for the physicians definitely are more advanced and use the terms that familiar in the that field, which like atorvastatin inhibits HMG. I do not understand this part, and so on. The recommendation that you get is a consult a primary care physician or cardiologist to review the atorvastatin dosage for sake of safety and stuff like that, and some suggestions. And definitely disclaimers that you have for all of this medical consultation, that this is not a final diagnosis. You should consult a license with a medical professional. And the reference that the machine find for these answers. So this basically let me show you. Let me find the prompt that I use. This is the final prompt that I put in a Grok. Role, exactly a step by step that I have there. Role, context, task, guardrailing, output, guidelines. Run. Machines start all the assessment, like assessment number 1. All of the risk that he find, like a 3 risk, 1, 2, 3, with all the confidence and likelihood. Assessment number 2, risk number 2, number 1, 2, 3, with all the quantification metrics. Number 3, and then it normalized risk and taking the average and basically doing the guardrailing. Do all the math behind and create a final report that this is the final answer. And as I ask machine to create HTML out of for the results, it creates the HTML output. And this is the report. So this is the first step in the project that I'm working on. And now we are working on to add more solid data from the drug bank data, from all other valid sources. The last thing which I want to show is, so this is a grok environment. The one that I want to show is the N8N environment. N8N is a little bit technical. Maybe I will take it back. It's a technical environment. But what I want to show you here is recently some technologies introduced to create a mini app, either N8N or this Opal introduced by Google. So you can create box in this workflow for creating context, creating the analyzer, the brain, adding guard training, and structuring the output, and sending you an email. So before I run this, I want to add one more, I want to explain the context generator, which we did not have in the previous, because in the previous ones, I add context by myself. But sometimes the context is not as clean as what I showed there. Sometimes the medical record is something very complex. I mean, this is a very like a sample of medical records. I mean, these are hypothetical ones. But every person have its own EHR that can come in a very different formats. But what you want is to extract and generate context. So this step in this workflow create that context. Extract the current medication, extract the treatment that the person is going on, the person is described, and all of these, the brain step, the guardrail step, and the output formatter is the same as the previous ones, or similar as the previous ones. But we did not have the context generator in the last solution. So when I run this, there are much more details into this one, which I'm not going to explain, but I want to show you that this workflow basically read the documents, the EHR document, generating context, run the analysis under the brain, adding the guardrails, all of those, the self-consistency roles, and creating the structured output format, and send me an email with the final response. The prompt that I have here is a little bit different than the other ones. So the final answer that you will see is not exactly the same. But when this, the analysis is done, now it's running guardrail, and it's gonna send me an email with the final answer. And I'm gonna show you the email that I receive.
We are on the hour. I really appreciate this, but it's just wrap it up. Yeah,
it's finished. Yeah. So this is the email that I got.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, sorry.
I mean, yeah. Normally, Pedram, we stop the presenters 15 minutes ago, but this was so good that I really wanted you to continue, and we have got very good feedback, as you can see from the chats and the questions online that I put here, and some really good questions. So the time is over, but if you have time, there are some really good questions in the chat. And for those who can stick around, but Bijan, would it be okay if we take some of the questions?
Sure. Dr. Krunov actually asked some great questions. It's great to have a clinician and seeing the point of view of the clinician on those complex, that it seems simple, but of course the interpretation might be different. Dr. Krunov.
This is really interesting. I like the idea of asking the same question 3 times. I use Perplexity. What do you think of that one? Do you have a favorite AI? I like Perplexity because it has references.
Definitely Perplexity provide reference. My preference is Grok, but to be honest, there's not much of preference. For different purpose, you need to choose different models. Let me share back my screen. So in the world of AI, there are models that they call it as a reasoning model, that every company have their own. So, for example, OpenAI called the reasoning model as O3 family. So the O3 family, O3 is a reasoning model. They are much better for the analyzing situation. That's why I use O3 in the layer of the brain. And I use the GPT normal, like a normal for the language understanding. So I totally big fan of the Perplexity for the idea of the providing reference. But when it comes to the implementation, you have to choose the one that, for example, good for reasoning, the one that good for the understanding the language. So it's a matter of the trial and error. So there's no like a best technology ever. So my preference now is Grok, but if you ask me like a solid answer, I do not have a solid, supporting argument for that.
I visited a friend who's a Hollywood producer recently. He told me Grok is his favorite.
Yeah, Grok is amazing.
It
Thank
is
you.
amazing. So I remember that some of our surgeons at Baylor College of Medicine use Orange. It seems that was not textual. It's very easy to use. And for medical student, that was great. So I know that you are passing through the time, but that was amazing talk, Pedram John. One thing that I learned when we are using on the real application in clinical setting is that impactful for the patient. We thought that patient will use those resources to learn about the conditions and that can help to improve compliance, but we're wrong. We send notification to the patient, but simply their answer was yes or no with no engagement to ask questions through the text or even report their symptoms. And then we realized that we need to add maybe kind of the like gamification, understand at which time of the day we should send a notification that pay attention to it. Yeah. What should be the headline of the text that we're sending to them that start to open up and engage? And of course, we are working, we have some good data on our Smart Boot project. Actually, one of our C2SHiP members involved on it, but we achieved to separate those kind of the text for the patient to two categories: the type of the tone of the message that we send to them to respond, and also the timing. And that timing might be different, depend on the work style of the individual. For instance, we find out that when we are sending early afternoon notification, nobody responds, or majority of the patient doesn't respond. But the evening and the morning, those are the timing that actually the patient are more responsive. I was wondering that your model that you have, I'm guessing eight different category that you have guarding, etc. Do you anticipate another block about kind of the gamification and personalization to identify when those emails should be sent, when if there is a notification, when those come the notification should be sent, and how we can add it also another training that making closed loop to see that how it should be personalized, that patient responds better to those kind of the prompt or want to engage in these kind of the new resources.
If I understand your questions or your comments, basically, there are much more layers can be added to this workflow to make it more useful and make it more tailored to the problem, for sure. Finding the right time of the day, finding the right tone of message. Gen AI is amazing for writing perfect tone for one persona. So it helps you a lot to you can write a good prompt and you can get personalized message for your patients based on the profile, based on even the time of the day and vice versa. So writing the message, you can use Gen AI, you can add layer to that, and adding gamification. I'm all with you about this extra layers. It just depends on where you want to go where you want to proceed with this workflow. You know, it depends on your use case. Yes, you can add more layers into it, and yes, gamification is definitely matters. Yeah, that's my thoughts. I'm not sure if I answer your question.
No, that's great. I mean, that's a part that I would like actually to mention, that it exactly depend of the application. It's not
Yeah.
easy that we deploy those setting in the clinic, and
Yeah.
then we are saying that everyone started using them. And this is the part that require to have a more collaboration between clinician and engineers like you, as well as engagement of the patient. Give you some of the recent examples, for instance, for post-hospital discharge. Some of the symptoms that's very important to report is pain. But imagine that someone report that my pain is 7, then that patient has wounds. So encouraging that, not sharing the wound, and then starting to personalize their prompts about the wound that patient has, taking the picture of the wound, analyzing that picture of the wound, about the drainage that wound has it, or some other sign that may be a sign of infection. That's a way that can help clinician to understand that whether that is kind of the symptoms that should be immediately communicated with the doctors or not. So it's really complex, and those are kind of the message that the patients start to respond. And those are the kind of the information doctors care about it. Otherwise, they are overwhelmed. They don't want to get tons of information, tons of the message. The same thing for patient, if they don't perceive the benefit of engaging and getting those kinds of material, they will not spend to using those kinds of apps. They are not tech savvy, and they need to have something, some reasoning to be able to engage with those kinds of apps. So that's kind of the point that I would like to highlight. But as I mentioned in the beginning, is a great timing to deploy those kind of the innovation in the healthcare. I know that their willingness is different, that the doctors very busy, say that, you know what, I don't want to be engaged, I'm worried about liability issue, patient privacy. No, I'm saying that they are openness. They are now willing to take the risk and explore those kind of the new concept of the AI. Everyone in the hospital setting now, they're under pressure to deploy AI in part of their practice. It's a great timing for building collaboration, and we are hoping to collaborate together.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I would love to, collaborate with anyone in the group team as well. Yeah, please share your thoughts. I also, if you want, in my YouTube channel, I explain more stuff like this. If you want to follow, I would be delighted.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, the reason I invited Pedram is that I watched one of the videos where he was explaining this, and I thought this is an opportunity to bring this to C2SHiP, which I found, and yeah, for sure, follow his channel. That would be very helpful. There is a question online.
Sorry, if you can share your channel link on the chat box and your email, if it's okay, that would be great.
For sure.
Yeah, that's a great idea. While you're doing that, Pedram, there is this question from Tom Rocco. He is a cardiologist online on our LinkedIn, and I actually found a link to the paper he's referring to, that recent studies have shown that AI alone performs better than physicians using AI, probably because most physicians don't know how to use AI appropriately. And I actually found a link to the paper. It is by JAMA, saying that large language model influence on diagnostic reasoning. I'm going to share it here in the chat. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a very. I was writing a post on this matter as well, and like several days ago. I'm gonna share it soon. When you know how to write prompt, you should do writing prompt effectively with details. But when you do not know, you better let it AI to make decision, because otherwise you mislead AI. So
yes,
it is important that when you're communicating with AI, if you do not know exactly the best practices and the right way of doing that, you should let AI do the job, because otherwise you mislead it. But if you know how to communicate, how to write prompt effectively, you definitely need to do that. This situation becomes even more harsh when it comes to the reasoning model, when it comes to more complex model. So those models that they call it quote unquote thinking or reasoning, they are more sensitive to the prompt that you put into. The general models are not that sensitive. So the sensitivity of the model to the prompt that you put in also depends on the type of the model. So as you mentioned, it is very important to know how to communicate. If you don't know, let AI decide, and in the meanwhile, learn the best practices and make sure that you can get maximum value out of it.
Yeah, that is great. And we had I don't read the one of our audience, Rhonda, a lot of really good comments. I don't know if he or she wants to talk. Yeah. So okay. This was a great talk, Bijan. Should we wrap it up?
Actually,
Oh,
I would just wonder if Pedram could just address the issue of bias. So, because my opinion is that one of the advantages of the large language model is that it has a different bias, or the bias can be programmed in the prompt. The way you construct the prompt can tell the LLM what kind of a bias to bring to the question.
I see your message, and it's I totally get you. You can call it bias, but otherwise you can, if you don't guide AI do what he has by its own, and it may not fit your need. The way that you can mitigate the bias issue is to ask, after writing your prompt, give that prompt to the AI and ask him, what do you think about it? And LLM and AI give you feedback on that prompt with some sort of self-criticizing method. In that case, you can kind of mitigate the idea of bias. But if I want to use AI in my everyday basis, I prefer a structured thinking behind, other than let AI do creative job. But I always ask AI to self-criticize itself and give me feedback about what he or she basically generate from me. So in order to mitigate the bias, do the self-criticizing by AI.
Why do you think that the AI is better than the combination of physician plus AI?
I think it's not. Did I say? I mean, I think combination of physics AI is much better.
that came out of the question I brought. As a matter of fact, that came from Tom Rocco online, and I found a paper I just shared in the chat that when you use AI, you don't correctly use AI, that can actually create less reliable results. That was but I shared the JAMA paper here in the chat.
Yeah, I definitely I do believe that expert plus AI is better than AI. But you have to, I think maybe this misunderstanding happens when you do not know how to communicate effectively, then let's rely on AI. But if you know, definitely expert plus AI is beat AI by itself.
I fully agree. The analogy that I'm using, it was evidence-based medicine. So evidence-based medicine is, of course, is the best actually practice. That means that we can extract it from systematic review, but at the same time, the expertise of the doctors does matter. And if there is a technique that doctors they are not comfortable to use, definitively that can define the concept of evidence-based medicine. And we have the same thing on the AI. The AI is a tool, it's good, it can guide them, it can actually highlight some of the, for example, diagnosis that the doctors need to pay attention. and also understand that what kind of CPT code for reimbursement are relevant for that kind of condition, because that is kind of the challenge that we have. And I like this idea of the agentic AI, because currently some of our group, they are using these to find out that what is the latest guideline that we have, what kind of the CPT code that they have, and then they can modify them, saying that, you know what, I don't want to use that CPT code for that kind of diagnosis. Or no, if you have that kind of diagnosis, that should be the action plan. This is a standardization that we implement in our hospital, and we need to follow that guideline that we have specifically in our hospital as well. So those are kind of the personalization of the training that's coming, and over time, ultimately become a good tool that also support multidisciplinary care, because the care is fragmented and there are many physicians involved ultimately as a part of the care, and making simple tools that easily also communicate those kind of information between colleagues definitely can make the job easier. So it's not replacement, it's something that can better connect the multidisciplines together, improve efficiency, and also reducing the cost overall. I know that we pass over time. It's a very hot topic. Dr. Klonov, you want to add something?
Yes, I want to make a statement why the MD plus AI will almost always outperform the AI. AI is not God. It gets its information from some sources. The sources may not be appropriate. They may not be correct even. They may be biased. There's a lot of potential problems. Also, the doctor knows what's really going on, can weight factors. A computer just can't. It wants to, but it can't. So a doctor is always going to know more about the patient than AI. AI is very helpful, but I would not expect a program that doesn't know the patient, that may have false information, to outperform a doctor every time.
This is very important. Really appreciate to clarify that. I know that sometimes the engineering, they may miss some of those challenging, and it's a fact, but you're absolutely right. I mean, I remember Sir Williams, the founders of Johns Hopkins, they said that if it wasn't because of heterogeneity of patient, medicine could be a science, not an art. So that's a reality. So there are a lot of details and complexity that ultimately we need to have doctors to use some really information that at the moment it would be very hard for the AI to grasp. Maybe down the road, maybe, but not. I'm not perceiving in the near future. Thank you, everyone.
One last thing before we leave, Pedram, you put this here. When I look for unorthodox lessons in YouTube, I don't know, I'm not able to find. I don't know if it was you had the link handy. That would have been really good. But anyways, I'm sure I can find it if I put some time.
Yeah, I'm gonna share it again. I think I shared it, but I'm gonna share it again in the chat if I can have access to. Let me find it. Yeah.
And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Pedram. Amazing talk, a great discussion that we have, and happy Friday, and see you all next Friday. Pedram, I'm hoping that you can join. Definitely having your skill on some of the discussion that we have also on the physician side would be very valuable to us as well.
I would love that. Please send me an email for any clarification and any potential collaboration. Yeah, thanks a lot for inviting me. Very happy to be here today, Friday morning.
Thank you, Pedram. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.